Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're diving into a moment of raw tension, a scenario where military might, political stakes, and human lives intersect in one explosive event. A missile strike damaging a key bridge near the Belarus-Ukraine border. Picture a cold dawn,
We must
mist
act now.
rising off a river,
The situation
the steady
is
hum of
critical.
heavy vehicles moving supplies, a steel bridge arching over dark waters, and then a flash that changes everything. This is not just war. This is strategy. This is politics. And this is near the border of Belarus. For weeks, analysts have warned of heightened risks along this northern flank. Patrols, convoys, drones buzzing overhead, all under the wary eyes of commanders in gray-green fatigues. The bridge in question was more than infrastructure. It was a lifeline. Vehicles, troops, ammunition, supplies crossing from Belarusian territory toward the front lines in Ukraine. It stood in a zone where every rumble in the forest, every radar ping, every transmission might be a trigger. And then in a single moment, a missile impacts. The sound is like thunder over water. The bridge shudders. Concrete cracks. Steel beams groan. Smoke billows. Suddenly, the route is severed. The engines stop. The horizon darkens. In Kyiv, word arrives. Satellite images, intelligence chatter, voices of concern. The strike reverberates not just physically, but strategically. To the north in Belarus, the leadership watches. In Moscow, the maps are redrawn. The political calculus shifts. It's no longer just logistics. It's signaling, we can strike here. We can disrupt there. The border is not safe. The flank is vulnerable. And that is the kind of escalation everyone fears. Imagine standing on a muddy bank of that river at dawn. The bridge half collapsed, twisted cables dangling. The water underneath reflecting fire and ash. The silence heavy, broken only by distant alarms. Soldiers in camo jackets move cautiously, scanning the broken span, their breath visible in the cold air, boots sinking into wet ground. A radio crackles. Situation confirmed. Bridge down. Reroute supplies. Await further orders. Meanwhile, higher up, a general stares at the map. Red lines, arrows, threat zones. He takes a long drag of his cigarette in the command tent. He knows what it means. Supplies delayed. Troops idle. Morale shaken. Back in Belarus, the government issues statements, condemnation, references to rogue actors, unacceptable provocation, while in Ukraine there is quiet determination, and in the West there are anxious glances toward the northern flank. For the soldiers who arrived here yesterday, there's no time to digest headlines. There's only the reality. A route that worked this morning is closed this afternoon. Their boots sink in mud that smells of diesel and fear. They gather supplies that now must go over a longer path. They look across the damaged span and see not only broken infrastructure, but a symbol. This war is creeping into new terrain. The bridge's destruction carries multiple messages. First, one side has the reach, the precision, the willingness. Second, the other side now must adapt, reroute, reinforce. Third, the borderlands are no longer safe. Fourth, supply chains and timing matter. Because in war, delay is danger. A shipment of shells arriving late means fewer strikes. A fuel truck late means fewer patrols. A ruck of sandbags delayed means weaker cover. The ripple from that damaged bridge will be felt. In command rooms, in bunkers, at checkpoints, in trenches. In one command room somewhere inside Ukraine, screens flicker. Satellite imagery from the morning. Thermal lines showing vehicle movement. A live feed from a drone capturing the smoke rising from the river. The senior intelligence officer leans forward. He presses his gloved finger on the screen. Here, that's where they struck. We lost 15 trucks crossing this morning. We must switch to the secondary route. His voice is calm but tense. One of his staff glances at him. Sir, the alternate route is longer, more exposed, fewer bridges. Response troops will be delayed by at least 4 hours. Do it anyway, he says. We cannot let a single bridge define our logistics. Outside, in a bunker near the border, young soldiers peer through night vision scopes. They had been expecting something, but not necessarily this. Their unit had escorted heavy equipment across the nodal point just 6 hours earlier. The ground shook beneath them. They felt the blast. They smelled the heat. Some looked upstream and saw the smoke plume climbing into the sky like a warning. One of them, Private Lysenko, whispers, "This will change everything." Political leaders watch too. In Minsk, the capital of Belarus, a tense meeting takes place behind closed doors. The president's face is stern. He listens to reports of missile ranges, of bodies crossing borders, of conversations with Moscow. He knows the optics. To appear too weak is risky. To escalate is dangerous. Outside the meeting room, protests stir. Some citizens demand neutrality. Some worry their country is becoming a staging ground. Some cloak their fear in silence. In Kiev, the Ukrainian president, sitting at his desk, studies the same map. He knows the public expects swift retaliation. The military wants to strike back. The world watches. Will this be a limited escalation or a turning point? Will the border become a new front? In the shattered remains of the bridge, we see the human side. A driver, his truck half off the span, sits in the cab with his hands clasped on the steering wheel. He stares at the river. Behind him, a co-driver checks the load of ammunition crates, untouched now, stuck. They had promised their families they'd be home by next week. They look at the cracked concrete and wonder if this means more danger, more nights crouched in bunkers, less homecoming. A bridge is not just steel and concrete, it's hope. The hope of safe passage, of movement, of connection. When it goes down, so does a little of that hope. And on the political stage, the world sighs. NATO analysts note the strike. Military correspondents file dispatches about new vulnerability in Belarus-adjacent zones. Intelligence services escalate their warnings. Some hours later, the general in the Ukrainian command tent issues orders. Reassess northern corridor. Deploy anti-air assets near border areas. Increase drone surveillance of key nodes. Prepare for strikes of opportunity. Meanwhile, Moscow quietly registers the reaction. It logs the disruption. It tickles the possibility of more. Because in war, timing is everything. A damaged bridge now might open a new front tomorrow. The terrain shifts. The lines on the map expand. The border no longer marks safety. It marks risk. In the hours after the strike, rescue crews arrive. Smoke still drifts over the river. Firefighters halt flames licking at vehicle remains. Engineers inspect the span to measure damage. They decide which parts can be salvaged and which must be rebuilt. Some pipelines cross the bridge. Some rail tracks hung precariously. The engineers sketch diagrams, measure moments of collapse, note what must be reinforced. But soldiers hover nearby, watchmen. Because while engineers repair, someone is always watching. Because war doesn't pause for reconstruction. It pushes, it advances, it waits, it retaliates. At dusk, the scene shifts. The river glows under a copper sky. The broken cables sway. The trucks sit idle. The soldiers gather for a quiet meal in the field kitchen. A meal of barley, boiled rations, heated water. A lieutenant says to his squad, "The bridge didn't just fall from a missile. It fell because our adversary wants us to think differently. They want us to reroute. They want us to react. They want hesitation." The soldiers nod. They know, they've rehearsed it. But this is real. This is now. Then the lieutenant raises his cup. To the new route. To our resilience. They drink. The fire crackles. A distant boom echoes. The night falls, heavy. In the political capitals, a different fire burns. Questions of escalation, stability, diplomacy. Should the strike trigger a wider response? Will the border region now be normalized as a war zone? Will civilians displaced by fear start crossing into Belarus? Will Belarus posture more aggressively, or will it step back under international pressure? Will Western powers step in with more aid, more missiles, more intelligence? Or will they hold back and let the path of least resistance unfold? These are the strategic gambles that hinge on a single damaged bridge. Because war is not always fought in open fields. Sometimes it's fought in logistics chains, in infrastructure, in the ability to move and supply. When that breaks, so does the initiative. In the quiet hours before dawn the next day, drone shadows pass overhead. The soldiers bivouac near the river. The command tent glows inside with screens and maps. Engineers mark off the damaged bridge zone. Convoys reroute through forested tracks, slower, more exposed. The cost is time. The cost is risk. But there is resolve. Resolve to admit nothing. Resolve to keep moving, because retreat is not an option. The general stamps his orders. We keep the flow. We adapt. The adversary wants pause. We give them movement. We give them momentum, K. And so the story of the bridge becomes a microcosm of the larger war. It's not just about a missile, it's about the message behind it. The border is active. The stakes are high. The journey of supplies, of soldiers, of strategy flows through vulnerable points. The leadership in Belarus knows that his country cannot afford accidental escalation. Yet his territory is a launchpad, a corridor, a chessboard. The leadership in Ukraine knows that to hold the line, all parts must hold, including the ones behind the scenes. The patrols, the engineers, the logistics, the men and women who make movement possible. From the destroyed cables to the recalculated routes, from the smoking ruins to the command decisions, this is war at its shifting edge. As we end today's video, I ask you to reflect on the human side of this moment. The driver who cannot cross, the engineer who must rebuild under threat, the soldier who waits. War is often portrayed in headlines as thundering missiles and frontline heroics, but so much of it is the infrastructure behind the scenes and the silent gamble of logistics. A bridge down means much more than a road closed. It means the adversary tried to interrupt movement, tried to freeze initiative, tried to tell one side, you are vulnerable. But initiative is what turns vulnerable into resilient, and resilient into advancing. Thank you for following this deep dive into the strike near the Belarus-Ukraine border, the damaged bridge, the strategic ripple, the human story, and the political tension. I'll be monitoring new developments, keeping an eye on how the north flank evolves, how forces adapt, what comes next. For now, the bridge stands cracked, the gear is rerouted, the strategy is recalibrated, and one thing remains clear: the war continues, and the map keeps changing. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates.